Welcome to another lesson. Today we're going to learn how to make these bags. These are made with granny squares, and there's two different options. You've got short handles, and this bag is single crocheted together with the joining method, and the other bag is sewn together. The squares are sewn together and the handles are different. The handles on the grey bag are flat and long. You can also make them short, and on this bag the handles are a tube, and these ones are short, but you can also make them long. So I'm going to grab my measuring tape to show you the sizing of the bags and how they have come out. The red bag squares are approximately 4 inches square. The height of the bag is about 10 inches or 25 centimetres. And the width of the bag is about 18 inches or 45 centimetres. The other bag, I used 8 ply on this one, which is equivalent to sports weight or double knit. The other one I used worsted weight. This square has turned out the same. So this one is a 4-inch square or 10 centimetre. About 40 centimetres wide or 16 inches. The height's about the same as well, 10 centimetres by 10 inch or 25 centimetres. So the bigger your square, the bigger your bag is going to turn out. So let's get started on the lesson. So after you have all your squares made, I've actually just put these on the ground because it's easier, it's a bigger space for me to show you what to do. We're going to join them together. There's 2 options that you could use for the bag. I'm sure there's more, but these are the 2 options I'm going to show you how to do. This one that you're looking at now, I have sewn the squares together. I've already sewn some together so I can show you what it looks like. It gives it a nice flat look to the crochet. There's no ridges, it's all nice and flat. I haven't joined those ones down the bottom yet. That is what I'm going to use for the video to show you what to do. Oh, there's a couple at the top there I haven't joined either as well. So here we go. This is what the sewn together crochet looks like. See how it's nice and flat? There aren't any ridges. I think this is a really nice way to join the bag. But there is also another way to join the bag. So just give me a second and I will get that one there. Now I've already joined these ones together. Don't panic, I'll still show you what to do. Because I was originally going to use this for the video, but I decided the squares were too dark for the video, and then I made these pretty ones. Because if you recognise this square, this is the not so, what is it? The not so square granny. That pink one I used for the video. Oops, sorry. Putting my arm in the way there. So this is the other one that I used. This is what I was going to originally use for the video, but I decided against the black and the red were too dark, so we're going to use the grey. But that's okay. This was using the method where you single crochet the squares together. Now see how there's a ridge? Can you tell that there's a ridge on the video? There's a ridge on the squares. Now I think this looks good too, gives it another dimension to the bag, but if you don't like the look of all the ridges on the bag, you can use the other method and sew them all together. So this is also one of the options for your handles. It's basically just a crochet tube. This is what we do. I'm going to make a tube and then sew it on the top like that. So I've just got that other one to sew on. I will show you in the video how to do that as well. So there's a few different options. You can use the ridges, you can sew it so it's flat. You can use this handle here on the grey bag. On this bag I'm going to use a different handle option to show you how to do that one as well. Or you can buy the pre-made ones from the shops, but I don't know how much they are where you live, but here they are about $15 a pair. Now once you buy, especially if you're going to sell these as to make some money, $15 plus the cost of your bag plus the cost of making it, it makes it quite an expensive bag. So I think, because I'm such a Scrooge, the crochet option is a cheaper option. Sure, the bag handles do look very, very nice. So it's up to you. You can use whatever you like. So we're going to have this option. I'm going to show you another one with the grey ones. And then you can pick whatever square you like. You can use any square that you like. It doesn't matter. I've used the Lella flower, or Lella's flower here. It's a granny square with the flower attached. It's all worked in one piece. And this one is the not so square granny. I think this is really cool too. Great for using up scraps. Is that really glary? Yes. Great for using up scraps. Or you could use whatever colours you like. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to crochet the squares together. I'm also going to show you how to sew the squares together. Both are really easy options. Single crocheting them together is a lot quicker than sewing it together, but depending on the method that you like. If you want it nice and flat, I do think this is worth the time. It's not really slow, but it is slower than the crochet together. Because crocheting is very quick, sewing is a bit slower. So let's get started and make this awesome bag. So first of all, we're going to learn how to sew them together. See how it's nice and flat? There's no ridges at all. I really like this method. So let's learn how to do that. It's really simple. If you haven't done it before, you shouldn't have any problems because it's really simple to learn. So what you're going to do first of all is go through your granny squares and make sure they're the right way up. Because if you get to the end and realise you've sewn one of your squares back to front, been there, done that, you're not going to be very happy about it. So what you're going to do is make sure they're all the right way up. How do you know if it's the right way? What's the good side and what's the bad side? Well, with experience you will just be able to tell by looking at it. But this side looks nice. It's kind of bumpy. And the other side, it's hard to explain. I think the other side looks more flat. Like the stitches are flat. And they're smaller. See how the little tiny little stitches? And on this side they look a lot bigger. Did that make any sense? I hope so. So you should be able to tell the difference. This is the good side and this is the bad side. So make sure they're all the right way up. Put them in a pile. I've already done this before, something I prepared earlier. So we're going to grab 2 squares. And what we're going to do is put right sides together. So the good sides, the side you want to look at, you want to put them together. So that's this side, and you want to put them together like that. Then you are going to get your piece of yarn, and I'm going to cut off about half a metre, 50 centimetres. I think that's about half a yard, so quite long, but don't make it too long because you will get yourself in a few knots. So we're going to thread our needle, and what we're going to do with the wrong sides together, good sides together, so on the inside it's the nice side facing each other, we're going to put the thread into one of our corners. Now, depending on your granny square, you're just going to pick the stitch that's in the corner of the granny square. Now, if you chose this square, you've got 3 stitches in the corner. You're going to put your needle into the second square. Second stitch. You're going to pick up your other square and put it into the second stitch as well. You're going to pull through. Don't pull through too far because you'll pull the thread right out. We're actually going to tie a knot. I don't normally tie knots in my crochet, but when it comes to this, I don't want it coming undone, so I'm just going to tie a knot. Now you can work over your thread as you go. If you don't want to, or you find it's too hard, just put it to the back and then we can sew that in later. Easy enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up all the stitches along here. Now, a way to do it, if it's this kind of square, you can match up the holes that are on the, on the front and at the back. That'll make sure it's all lined up. Or put your corners together. You might have different granny squares that you're using for your bag. They might not all be the same. So put your two corners together and line them up. You want to make sure it's nice and even. And what you're going to do is grab your thread. You can go from back to front or front to back. It really doesn't matter. And you're going to go through the matching stitches. So if it's this stitch on the back, it's going to be the same stitch on the front. You can go through both loops on both squares or one on each. Entirely up to you. Actually, I'm going to go this way, make it easier for the video. So under both loops of both squares, and then just pull your thread through, go to your next stitch, do the same thing, and you're going to repeat this all the way across. So I'm just pulling my yarn through. See how that's getting caught across the top there? That's what you're going to do if you were sewing it as you go. So I'm going to leave that at the back. So going to the next lot of stitches, making sure you're picking up both loops. Now once you get the hang of this, it is a little bit faster, of course. Just like anything, if you practice, you'll get better. And that's what we do for all of our squares. Now what I do, I actually like to cheat. After I finished all my squares, so normally you would join one here, then you'd get your next square, and then join the next one like that, and you'd make a strip. But I actually cheat. So I'm going to quickly go along, join this together. I'll just keep the camera rolling. So as you go along, you're going to make sure that the ends are still matching up, because you don't want to get to the end and have like one shorter than the other, because that's not going to work. If you've got different amount of stitches on one square to the other, maybe you can't match up the stitches like we are here, so you're just going to lay them together and just stitch across. Nice even stitches will make it sit a lot better. Okay, so you're going to remember that we need to go into the corner stitch of both squares, making sure that you're getting them so that your corners are joined. So now we've got these two squares joined up here. So now what I'm going to do, if I need to make, if it's joined, so we've got two squares there, and then we need to join another two squares there, what I do is get my two squares, make sure my good sides are together, and I join this on here and keep going. So we're going to, they're still attached here, we're going to find the corner of this square and the corner of the one behind. We're going to pull our thread and see how it's still attached over here. We're going to pull that tight, not too tight, just so they're butted up next to each other like so, and continue working across. And this is a lot harder to do than it is sitting in front of the TV. A lot harder working around this camera. It's highly unnatural. If you could see me now. But looks good on camera, so that's all that matters. So we're just working our way across, like exactly what we did with the other square. And then what happens is, when we open it up, our two squares are joined in this seam here. See that? So when we've got all of our squares joined together, then you can work down this seam. And what it does, instead of having all these threads to sew in, if you sew one to here and then one to there, you're going to have that end and then that end to sew in. By doing this, if you've got a seam that goes all the way across, you're only using one piece of thread. And if you're anything like me, I cannot stand sewing ends in. So sew your 17 squares together like you have on your the diagram that we have to print out. I do have mine somewhere. Seems to have got lost in the crochet. But sew them all together, and then I will show you how to put the bag together. Just sew it so you've got the flat section. There will be a bit on your graph where it says to sew the sides together. I'll show you how to do that bit, so don't worry if you don't know how to do that. You just want to make it sewn all the squares together until it's just that flat, funny looking shape that we have to make with our 17 squares. Okay, so the next part in the video, I'm going to show you how to crochet squares together. So to join your squares together with a single crochet, what we're going to need to do is have our squares facing nice side up. So the right side, it could be known in a pattern. So it's the pretty side. This is the good side, and that is the bad side. If you turned your work at the end of each row, there won't be a good or a bad side. But if you have continued going around the same way, there will be a good and a bad side. So getting your pretty sides, you're going to put the bad sides together. So you're going to be looking at the pretty side. So what we're going to do is grabbing our hook, we're going to put it into the center stitch or the corner stitch. So if it's a different square to this, it won't matter where it is, it'll always be on the corner. It's not a matter of just counting stitches, it's just a matter of looking at it and finding the corner stitch. You're going to grab your yarn that you wish to join with, place it over the hook and pull through. And then we're going to chain one. Pull down your yarn at the back, do another chain one. Sorry, something on there. It's gone now. And then we're going to single crochet across here. So going into each stitch on the front and the back, so you're going to locate the same stitch on the back. Then we are going to work a single crochet. Go into the same stitch on the front, find the same stitch on the back, and then single crochet. And then we're going to repeat that all the way across. Now, once you get used to it, you should be able to just stab through your crochet work without actually sort of separating it and looking. You'll be able to tell which one you've worked into and which one you haven't. So you're going to do that all the way across. Now I'm just going to speed up a little bit and I'll show you a cheats method. Because normally when you join them, you can join them sort of in a strip. So you'd have a long skinny strip when you join them together. But for me, because I hate sewing in ends, that creates a lot of ends because you're only ever going to be joining one end, getting your next square, joining it here, and then you've got another end. But if you have to make like a big block of something, so on this pattern you've got quite a few that are all sort of laying next to each other. And if you're making an Afghan, you definitely got a lot that are laying next to each other, not just in one strip. So when you're going to get to the end, you've got to make sure you've got to go into the corner stitch. So I'm not quite there. Don't take any notice of that, that's just an end I haven't sewn in. Now if you know how to work over your stitches, you can work that into the next piece. So you're going to find the corner stitch, making sure you've got the corner stitch on the other one. Right, so we've done that seam there. Now we're going to grab another square. I've already joined most of my squares together and I need 2. Alright, we're going to have to pretend. This one's already joined. But we're going to have to pretend that this is just a single square and it's not already joined. So what you're going to do is grab this square, which will be a single square, and this square, which is a single square, and you're going to lay them together again the same way. So it's bad sides together. So you've got the good side facing you and the good side facing you. Ignore that because it's not supposed to be there. So getting good sides facing out, bad sides facing together. Notice how this is still attached to this square. We've come along here and joined and it's still attached. What we're going to do now is continue straight across onto our next lot of squares. Finding the corner stitch on both your squares like we did before. Picking up your working yarn that you're using, because we haven't cut it off, remember, it's still attached. And then we're going to work a single crochet. Make sure it's reasonably tight. You don't want it loose, otherwise it's going to separate like so. You want to make sure that it's reasonably tight so that it can't separate. Don't like try and strangle it, but make it show it so it's, you know, it's together like so. Then continue on to the next lot of stitches. So I'll do a few and then show you what it's going to look like. Oh look, we've got an end here. We can work over that. So what you do is you place it layering on top of the work. That was handy. I can show you how to do it. So this is what I like about this method. You don't have to sew the ends in on the last round of your granny square. So we're single crocheting across, and this is just getting laid on top of the work. See how it's just laying down? It's not doing anything special, it's just laying there. And as you crochet along, it's getting trapped in your crocheted row. That's pretty good, isn't it? So now we have these two joined together. Now ignore that up there, that's not supposed to be there. And now these two are joined together as well. Can I get that high enough so you can't even see it? There we go. It's not there. See? Come on. So it's joined together. This leaves the ridge there. So if you like that method, that's great. You can use that. So once you've got all your blocks, so on the pattern, you need four that are like this. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you've got 8 squares in a block. So that's easy to do that on this pattern. You can just grab 4 sets of 2 and just keep going. We'd have to go that way because you're crocheting that way. But you just keep going. So you pick up another 2 and then another 2 and just crochet across. So you'll have 4 joined together and they'll look funny because they'll be all flapping in the wind like so. But then you go up here and join your yarn and then crochet in this direction. And then that will give you less ends. Now I hope I haven't confused you by doing it that way. If it really confuses you, just work your crochet in strips. That's fine, it's going to work as well. And then when you've got all your strips together, you crochet along and join them all together. That's really easy. So once you've joined all of your squares together, then I'm going to show you what to do. We're going to connect our bag so it looks like a bag. So after you have finished sewing all of your squares together, this is what it's going to look like. This is the top of the bag, the V section, and then that's the other top of the bag on the other side. And these little bits here, this zigzag section here, and also on the other side, the zigzag section there, we're going to join this together. So what we need to do is to get our bag and fold it in half. So I'm just going, this is the good side of my bag, so this is the outside of my bag, so I need to flip it over. and you want the inside of the bag facing you. So what you're going to do is just fold it up and line up those two V sections together at the top like that. And that is your bag. And you're probably thinking, what is the go with the bit down here and over here? Well, this is where magic happens, ladies and gentlemen. What we are going to do is sew this section here to that section up there. And how we do that is, so you need to separate the two pieces like that. This seam here is going to get sewn to this seam here. So when it's finished, it is going to be sewn like that. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see it a bit better. So laying flat, that is the bag laying flat. I've just put my hand underneath between the two layers, and this seam here is getting sewn to that seam there, and it's going to pull together. So this is the corner of this square, and that's the corner of that square. They're going to come together like so. And it looks a little bit funny laying like that because it's not all sewn together properly. So we are going to do that, and then on the other side of the bag, so I'm just going to flip it over. Well, it's actually the same on both sides, I don't need to flip it over. So this seam is getting sewn to that seam like that. And then the seam that's over here, so this is the other side of the bag, that seam is getting sewn to this seam here. So we're going to do this one first, and then I'll come back. So I'm going to show you how to sew these seam here together, and then we'll come back, look how it looks, and I'll show you how to sew the other seam together. Just so it's not confusing for you. You might even pick it up as you go along. It's going to be quite easy because we do exactly the same to both sides. So it's only sewing the seam, but it's how we sew the seam is how it makes it into a bag. So getting this seam here and this seam here together, you're going to sew that, or if you chose the single crochet method that on the red and black bag that like I did, you're going to use that method. So whatever method you've chosen, you're joining those two seams. So I'm going to go and do that, then I'm going to come back and then show you what we've got to do to the other side. Okay, so this is what I've got so far, and see how you've got this funny looking section here, it pokes up. That's fine, that's how it's supposed to be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip it over. So I'm going to flip it over, still making sure the tops of your bag are together. This will make it so you know what you're doing, you're sewing together the right seam. So you're going to keep that like that. Then you're going to go over to the corner here where you've done the seam on the other side. And what we're going to do now is this seam that's here, let's just zoom out a bit. So you've got the top of your bag like that, then it comes down like that, and then you've got this seam that goes in like that. That's a lot of that. So now this seam that's here, so you've got this little seam here, you're going to join that one together. So let me just zoom right out. Once we have this seam together, that is creating the bottom corner of your bag. I don't know if you can really see that on the camera. Let me see if I can hold it together and sit it up. This is going to be the corner bottom of your bag. So I hope that makes sense. And then after we've done this seam here, we're going to sew up that little side seam here. on that square, because if we don't, we're going to open our bag and all our stuff's going to fall out. And we don't want to lose the lippy or the mobile phone, do we? So we're going to sew the seam across there, and I'll come back and I'll show you the next seam that you've got to sew together. And you're going to repeat this exact process on the other side of the bag. So the tops of my bags are still together. I'm still laying them together. This is so you don't get confused on where you're sewing your seams together down the bottom. So now we have that zigzaggy bit that looked really weird. Now it's all joined in, and we've got this square down the bottom there. So now what you want to do, it does look quite weird, doesn't it, when it sits? Trust me, when it's all sewn together, it looks really cool. So what we're going to do now is, looking at the side of our bag, this is the side of our bag, this is the top, the V section is the top. Now we've got this seam here that is completely open, and this is the bit that if you don't sew it up, all your stuff's going to fall out. So what you want to do, we don't want to sew the seam all the way to the top, because then we're going to have this puny little hole here and we won't be able to get our things in and out, and it's going to be way too small. So what we're going to do is just sew the seam, the side seam that is here, that's along here. We're only going to sew it to the one square. So you're going to sew halfway between the two there. You're going to sew up to the first square. So just sew the seam from the top of that square down to the corner. And once we've done that, then we can go over to this side over here and do exactly the same, starting in the process that we did on this side, remembering do the little seams that are down here and then do that side seam. I haven't tried it the other way, but I'm sure I'd get confused if I did it that way. So do that. I'm going to go as off camera, sew the other side together as well, and then we'll come back, and then it's time for the handles. Rightio, so I have finished the corner. Let me just flip it over, it's easier to get to. I finished the corner and I've sewn up, where are we? I've sewn up the seam on the side there, stopped so that we've got those two squares open. And as you can see, it's starting to take shape as the bag, isn't it? I think it's looking really, really cute. Now, I think I must be going for a midlife crisis or an early midlife crisis, because I'm not a pink girl, but hello, we have pink. But I think this is a really cute bag. I love the grey and the pink together. Anyway, on with the lesson. We're going to do exactly what we did over this side, over that side, and I'll meet up with you then. So after we have sewn all the seams, you've got the seam sewn here, the seam sewn there. Now you have the opening of your bag. And if you lay it flat, you may have to just squash the corner squares a little bit just to get it to sit properly. You only have to do that once because then it will take shape. Then we have our bag finished. Well, sewing the seams together is finished. Now it's time to add the handles. So there's different types of handles, and I was able to find a ready-made handle that I have. So you can sew that on there. That's probably a little bit too small. As you can see, it doesn't quite come over here, but that's the kind of thing that you'd be after. You can buy them in all your craft shops and stuff like that. You can use the crocheted handle, this version, which is just a tube. I'm going to show you how to make that one like that. And then also, at the beginning of the video, of the tutorial, you will see the other handle that we have on this grey version here. So I'm going to teach you how to do that as well. So you're going to learn the tube one and then the other style that we have on the grey one. So let's get started on the handles.